Hello, gentle ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. In this video, we're going to learn a little bit about the Tidyverse. The Tidyverse is an R package that allows us to do data exploration, data cleaning, transformation, visualization. Okay, it's very, very useful package. Okay, and in this video, we're gonna do a very brief introduction to a few of the functions available in the Tidyverse for data exploration and data cleaning, okay? It's a really short video, but it will be an introduction to the Tidyverse. All right, so before we start, this video has these three assumptions. So I'm assuming, guys, that you already installed the Tidyverse package, okay? So you already have that installed in your R session. Um, I'm assuming that you know that there are other packages part of the tidyverse like ggplot2, dplyr, readr, and then you know that they are all part of the tidyverse universe, okay? And I'm also assuming that you know how to work with pipes in R, all right? So with these assumptions in mind, let's jump into action, shall we? All right, here we are in RStudio. As you can see, I'm using RStudio, and using RStudio, I created this notebook and I did all my analysis in that notebook, okay? All right, the first thing I did was I loaded the Tidyverse package, okay? So once you install a package, an external package, you need to load it every time you want to use it. So to load a package, not only the Tidyverse, any package, you need to use the library function, okay? Library function, and then the name of the package, all right? So let's go ahead and execute this code cell. There you go. So the package is loaded. And now let's get the data. Where did I get the data for this video from? Well, the data for this video is actually a CSV file that I have in my personal Kaggle account, okay? I thought about like reading the data directly from Kaggle to R, but that's kind of tedious and annoying. So I thought about a kind of easier way and simpler way. What I did was I uploaded that CSV file that I own to Google Drive, and then I created a shareable link to that file, okay? And then using that shareable link, we're gonna be able to read the file into R. So this is the file ID, okay? That's the file ID part of that shareable link, okay? And I store that file ID in that variable called file ID, okay? Then what I had to do was I had to use that file ID and create a URL to access the file, okay? And this is the URL, all right? From that URL, take a look at this part, the part that I'm going to highlight, that part right there, okay? That is what they call a Google Drive endpoint that allow us to download files from Google Drive. So if you want to download a file from Google Drive, you need to use that endpoint, okay? Now, this attribute, export equals download, means that from that URL, we want to download a file. So we don't want to get, from that URL, any information, any data about the web page or anything. We only want to get from that URL a file and download it, all right? And then finally, I'm saying here that the ID of the file that I want to download equals the percent signs and S. What is that percent sign and S? That is a placeholder for a string. And the string will be the file ID, okay? The string will be the file ID, which, as you can see here, is actually a string, okay? And then I put together the first part of the URL with the ID using the sprint f function. The sprint f function allows us to combine strings, okay? And I store the complete URL in this variable right here, okay? And now we're gonna use that variable to read the CSV file into R, okay? And that's what I do in the next call cell. But before that, let me execute this call cell. There you go. Now in the next call cell, I went ahead and I used the read underscore CSV function to read the CSV file on that URL into an R data frame, okay? I'm using read underscore CSV because as I said, the file is a CSV file, okay? And I store that in a data frame that I named like this, Caravaggio Kaggle DF, because, and this is important, in that CSV file, the data is about paintings by Caravaggio. Caravaggio, the famous Italian painter. So it's a bunch of paintings by Caravaggio and information about his paintings. Okay. All right, so let me go ahead and execute this code cell to create our data frame. It's gonna take a few seconds. Okay, only a few seconds and done. All right, now we can take a look at the data frame. For that, I'm going to use the head function, which is going to print the first 6 rows from that data frame. And sure enough, guys, as I said, this is a file with information about paintings by Caravaggio. So we have the title of the painting, the year where Caravaggio when Caravaggio painted the painting, when where he he did the painting, the current place of destination, the dimensions of the painting, and so on and so forth. All right. And there's actually, um, let me check how many paintings we have. I think 70 something. Yeah, 75 paintings. All right. So 75 paintings. All right. By Caravaggio. But again, when you use head, you only get the first 6. All right. Perfect. Cool. All right. So let me show you just a few functions from the Tidyverse that you can use to do data exploration and cleaning. And for that, guys, I'm going to focus only on the first column. Okay, this is a short video, so I'm just gonna focus on the first column. In other videos, I will work on different columns, on the other columns. But for now, let's only focus on this one, year. All right. Okay. So year, perfect. Um, what do I do? What do I do whenever I want to explore a column from a data frame? The first thing I do is I want to check if there are missing values in the column. Okay, that's the first thing I want to do. Okay, and for that, I'm going to show you how to use something from the Tidyverse. Okay, I'm going to show you that you can use from the Tidyverse, specifically from the dplyr package, the select um, function, and the select function would allow us to select only the column for which we want to check missing values. Okay, in this case, we want to select year. Okay. All right. So how do we do this? How do we check for possible missing values in the year column? Here is the code. By the way, guys, I forgot to mention this. I already included all the code in this notebook because I'm going to share this notebook via the description of the video. Okay, so in the video description, you'll see a link to download this notebook. Okay, so I don't want to, I didn't want to waste time typing code, so I included all my code already in code cells. Okay, so I don't waste time. All right. Anyway, so how do we use select to check for missing values in year? Easy. So we do the following. We say from the data frame that we have, we want to select year, and then on year, we want to apply this function, is.na. Is.na is a function that returns true if the row from that column is NA. NA means missing, okay? NA means missing. So is NA will return true if the row is missing. And it will return false if the row is not missing, okay? All right. Um, okay, so let's execute that code cell to see what we get. And sure enough, we get a bunch of false, false, false. And I think there is a true, at least a true, one true actually, only one true somewhere. Yes, there is one true, and the rest is false. And yes, just what I said. So it returns false if the row is not missing, if the row doesn't have missing data, and it returns true if the row has missing data. Okay. Perfect. But usually we want to know, like we want to quickly get a count of how many, how many missing values. That's easy. You can add one more thing here. You can add the sum, okay, the sum function, and that would allow us to add and to count how many true values are in that output, okay? We only have one true value, so that means we only have one missing value, okay? So that's the first thing I do whenever I'm trying to explore a column. Now that I found a missing value, I usually want to know what a specific row, especially with this data set that is so small, only 75 rows. I want to know what a specific row, what a specific painting is missing its year. You know what I mean? I would like to know which painting is missing its year, okay? And for that, we can use the filter function, okay? Let me show you. To find out what a specific painting is missing its year, we can use the filter function, okay? And the filter function is, again, part of Tidyverse, but more specifically is it's part of the dplyr package, okay? And the filter function takes as an argument a Boolean expression, okay? A Boolean expression is an expression that returns true or false, okay? So the rows for which the Boolean expression returns true will be kept in the output, okay? And the rows for which the Boolean expression returns false will be excluded from the output. So if the Boolean expression returns true, that row is kept in the output. If the Boolean expression returns false, that row is excluded, all right? All right, and so how do we use filter to find out what row has the missing year? Easy, very straightforward. So we say from the data frame, filter, and then this is the Boolean expression. Let me highlight it. That is the Boolean expression that we pass as an argument to filter. Is .na year. Is .na year, as we saw earlier, will return true when year is missing. Otherwise, it's going to return false. So that what that will do effectively will return only the row for which year is missing. All right, because that's the only row for which is .na year is true, right? That's the only row for which is .na year will be true. So let's do it. And sure enough, there you have it. Only one row, the row for which year is missing, okay? And that's, that's for that specific painting, Sleeping Cupid. And one thing that we usually want to do whenever we find missing data is we want to, as much as we can, to impute, okay, the missing data. You know what I mean? We want to fill the missing data with a value that makes sense, right? Well, in this case, you really cannot. I did my research, and researchers, people who research Caravaggio, they really don't know when he painted this painting. Okay, so we cannot fill the year with any value. Okay, so we need to leave it blank. Okay, but anyway, so whenever it's possible, you try to fill this with a value that makes sense. All right. But that could be a totally different video. How do you fill missing values with values that make sense? A lot of ways. Anyway, so that's one thing that I would like to do. So check for missing values and then find out the specific rows with missing values. Another thing that I would like to do is I like to think about the type of column that I am exploring. Is year categorical or numerical? Well, year is actually categorical because take a look at year. Year is just like, in principle, you can think it's numeric, but it's actually categorical. It's recorded as a string data type, okay? With 1 year, comma, second year. So it's string data type. Whenever I have string data type, the second step I like to do to explore the column is to do a frequency distribution, all right? Frequency distribution, I want to see how many times each value repeats, okay? I just want to do a count of how many times each individual value repeats, okay? And that's what I'm going to do right now using the count function, all right? There you go. So from the Tidyverse, specifically from the dplyr package, we are going to use the count function to do a count of how many times each specific value, each distinct value repeats, okay? Now, one thing that I want to say is that if the column was numeric, I will try to do, for example, a 5-number summary. So I would like to see the mean, the median, the standard deviation. I would like to probably do a plot to find possible outliers, but that That's the case when the variable is numeric, but in this case categorical, so I would try to do a count, okay? And the count is very, 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 very helpful, okay? You'll see why. Anyways, how do you do a count? Very straightforward. So you say from the data frame, I want to count year, and this is what I get. I get a count of how many times each distinct value happened. So this value 1593, 1594 happened 3 times. All right, this value 1594, 1595 happened 2 times. So and so on and so forth. So why is this helpful? Well, first of all, I get familiar with the column because I noticed that the years they follow a kind of the years were recorded following a specific pattern, which is the first year, comma, a space, and the second year. Okay, so that's giving me information. Okay, so there is a common format, if you will. There's a common format. I also noticed that sometimes the year is only a single value. Okay, not very often, but sometimes it is. All right. And what happens is, that calls into more research. What happens is that for some paintings, for a few paintings, researchers know exactly what year Caravaggio painted the painting, but that's only for a few paintings. For most paintings, there is a lot of uncertainty, so the best they can do is give us a range. So that means, okay, 2 paintings were painted between 1594 and 1595, and so on and so forth. So that's why we have that kind of format, okay? And that also allows me to detect this. Look at that. Look at that value. So that value does not follow the common format. So instead of comma space, I see a dash in between the two numbers. Okay. So that calls for fixing, right? So we should fix that. Okay. Because that value does not conform to the common format. Okay. So that's why, as I said, I think this count is very useful because I get familiar with the format, um, uh, the format of the values taken by that variable, and then I can kind of sometimes detect outliers. I don't see any outliers here, Outlier will be like if more values will have a frequency of in the 20s, in the 20s or 30s, but then there is one value that is only that only shows up one time. You know what I mean? So if I see a value whose frequency is very low compared to the other ones, I will see that's an outlier, but I don't see that here. Okay. And also doing the count allows us to detect values with the wrong format. Okay. All right. Anyway, so let's go ahead now and fix that. All right. Let's fix that value. All right. And to fix that value, guys, we are going to use two functions from dplyr. We're going to use mutate and we're going to use if else. All right. All right. Let's do that, shall we? Let's do that. So let's fix the year with the different format using mutate and if else. And they are both part of dplyr, okay? Both mutate and if else are part from dplyr, okay? All right, so let's see how to use mutate. And I want to say something first. So mutate, very useful function. You use mutate usually in two situations. You use mutate when you want to create a new column using the values of existing columns, okay? And the second case is you want to use mutate to change the values of an existing column, okay? So two cases, we want to create a totally different column using existing columns. Like, for example, if you want to create an age column using the year column. So you want to create a column recording the age of the painting using the year when the painting was painted. That will be a case where we could use mutate to create a new column. But here is different. Here we're using situation number 2. We are using mutate to change the values for some rows of an existing column, okay? So we want to change the value from year whose value does not conform to the common format, okay? All right, let's see how to do it. Let's see how to do it. All right, in that case, this is what we do. We do from the data frame. Oh, sorry about that. Forget about this for a second. So let's focus on this. So let's focus on this part first. that part first. So let's forget about the assignment, this assignment that is happening here for a second. All right, anyway, so here we do the following. We say from the data frame, apply mutate. You want to apply mutate on what column? Do you want to create a new column? No, I want to apply mutate on the year column, okay, which is an existing column right now. What do you want to do? Well, I want to change the values of year following the logic in this if-else condition, okay? I want to change the value of year following the logic in this if-else condition. So if year equals the incorrectly formatted value, okay, the one with the dash, then change it to the correct format. Else, just keep year untouched, okay? So if else takes 3 arguments, guys, 3 arguments, okay? The first argument is what is the Boolean condition? So when year equals that value, okay? Then the second argument is what do you want to do when the Boolean condition is true? When the Boolean condition is true, I want to change it to this option. And then the third argument is what do you want to do when the Boolean condition is false? So when the Boolean condition is false, which is for any value that does not have this dash. So I just want year to be left untouched, okay? Perfect. And the last thing that you need to do is you need to assign back the result of mutate to the data frame. This is very important. If you want the change from mutate to be permanent, okay? If you want the change from mutate to be permanent, you need to assign the result of mutate back to the data frame, and that's what I did here at the beginning, okay? That's the assignment operation in R, as you might know, all right? So let's execute this. And then finally, let's do the count again to confirm that the change happened successfully. And guys, sure enough, now we have the value in the correct format, okay? All right, guys. That's all. That's all I wanted to show you in this video about Tidyverse. I show you how to, using one column, the year column, how to check for missing values, how to detect the specific row with missing values. I also show you how to do a frequency distribution using the count function. So how to get a frequency distribution for a categorical column using the count function. And then finally, I show you how to use mutate and if else together to change the values for some rows, in this case for one row, from an existing column. How to use mutate and if else to change the values of some rows of an existing column, okay? And yeah, so that's one use of mutate, all right? Guys, I will do more videos about Tidyverse using this data set. So I hope I can see you in those videos, and I hope you enjoyed this video, all right? All right, bye guys, see you later.